Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Crimes, Killers, Cults,
and beer.
And Canadian beer.
Yeah.
Canadian beer on St. Patrick's Day. There we go.
That's quite the thing.
So
it's multicultural.
Yeah. This is the Canada Binge. You know, we've kind of neglected Canada, and it wasn't really on purpose. It just kind of happened. You know, I mean, it just happened that way. We've only covered one Canadian case to date, and that was Luca Magnotta all the way back in episode 2, like literally 100 episodes ago.
That is shocking that you haven't covered any other Canadian cases.
I do find it happens quite often, though, because Canadian cases just aren't as reported on as the States cases.
Well, what made me, by the way, we have Melissa and Christie from Buried Motives here with us today. So they're filling in because Paul.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for coming on.
We're happy to be here.
Well, what happened? The way that I noticed is I looked at our audience, and you would just expect an American podcast to be the second market to be Canada. Well, with us, it wasn't. It was Great Britain. So I was like, and that's when I realized, hey, we've been neglecting Canada.
Don't neglect us up here. We've got our own dirtbags that need to be talked about.
Yeah, come on, guys.
So we're gonna do four or five Canadian cases in a row. We're just gonna.
That's awesome. I find that Canada doesn't maybe have as many dirtbags, but the ones that we do have are wild cases.
Well, yeah, you got the Anthill Kids. You got Willie Picton.
Ken and Harvey. We have a lot.
Yeah. But we'll wrap it up with Willie Picton, and that's going to be a 2-part, maybe even a 3-part. So,
have fun with that dive. So we did that one already.
I've already ordered my book.
It'll be a good one to get into because they're just talking about parole. Day parole for him.
Yeah, I think Chrissy told me
eligible.
That. Yeah. I think he told me that. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
For our podcast, we're called Buried Motives, and we like to dive deep into kind of the backgrounds of the dirtbags and figure out what's going on there.
It's interesting. It's in my my weekly rotation that I don't miss an episode usually.
That's awesome. We appreciate it. We just really are fascinated with the idea of how this little baby is born and then turns into a monster and how that happens. So we really dig deep into the backgrounds and the details of each of the cases that we cover.
And sometimes it's just as disturbing to find out that there really was no reason for it at all.
It's true.
Yeah, like this chucklehead we're covering tonight.
Well, he's got a history.
Yeah, but he is a doozy one. That's for sure.
Well, I didn't really find much about his backstory. So if you guys if you found that and I didn't, feel free. So
we'll chime in
because I got a little bit of backstory on him, but not much. So today we're kicking off the Canada Binge. We're covering Alan Legere, and he kind of ran the criminal gauntlet. He was a serial rapist, arsonist, abductor, robber, and serial killers. And he's from Canada, eh?
He is from Canada.
You knew I had to do with the A at least once.
We did.
And we have to call you a hoser once.
Huh?
It's usually you're a hoser, eh?
Hoser. So he was known as the Monster of Miramichi, and he's still alive. And he was arrested, then he escaped, then he went on a killing spree that shut down the town until he was captured again, and he was at large for a while. So, my sources for this one are Criminal Minds Wiki, and there's the book called Escape Killer by R.J. Parker. So, we go from an encyclopedia for the title and the source for episode 101 to just Escape Killer. Short and sweet.
True.
This is from last week for Larry Jean Bell. It's called A Call from Hell, the true story of Larry Jean Bell, a small-town monster and the crime that shook the nation.
It's quite the title.
Yeah, you open the front cover and page 1 says chapter 2.
Yep.
And then you just go escape killer. And it says, it does say the monster of Miramichi, but that's added, like in the opening pages of the book. It's not on the cover. All it says on the cover is escape killer. I just thought that was funny.
Accurate. That was what he was. And the terror that he created was pretty surreal in that little town.
Yeah, well, there needs to be, they could make an entire horror movie franchise based on him.
Yeah.
Like they did with Ivan Milat with the Wolf Creek movies. But he killed 5. Huh?
I was going to say his actions definitely were what nightmares are made of.
And wasn't there a Stephen King? Wasn't there a Stephen King book based loosely on him?
Was there? I don't know.
I think there is.
Oh, I'm not
I'd
sure.
have to look. I can't think of the title right now, but I'm pretty sure that there was a Stephen King book based on him. Based loosely on him, anyway.
I thought that was BTK.
There's probably a few.
Yeah, Stephen King's written a couple of books.
Yeah, I've read quite a few of his books. Not a lot of his newer ones, though. He killed 5 people, and his case was actually the first case in Canada to use DNA as evidence. Which, there you go. Miramichi is... Huh?
Sorry, I was going to say. That was one of the things I found most interesting about his case, is that it was the first time DNA evidence was actually used in a murder trial.
Well, used for conviction, right? Mm-hmm. It had been used to exonerate prior to that, but for conviction.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they used it was brilliant. We'll get to that. As I like to say, put a knife in that.
Let's discuss hair color.
So, Miramichi is the largest city in New Brunswick, but in the 80s, when this takes place, they only had 20,000 people. And he was born February 13th of 1948 in Chatham, New Brunswick. And although his father abandoned his family when he was a kid, Legere had a perfectly normal childhood other than some hazing because his daddy wasn't there. Whenever I see that, I think of that Mike Myers song in Austin Powers. Daddy wasn't there to take me to the fair.
I had heard that I had read that he had grown up pretty impoverished in Chatham, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and was picked on pretty bad.
Because his mother couldn't get ahead. And it was just her.
Yeah, she ran a boarding house and had frequent male visitors.
Doing a little more than boarding.
Yes, and the walls apparently were pretty thin.
Oh boy.
So he had some early sexual experiences that weren't typical.
See, I didn't find that.
Of other boys.
But some little Fred and Rose West vibes there.
Yeah.
That's true.
Similar, yeah. Yeah, and didn't he share a bedroom with his sisters? Like well past the age where they kind of should have, and he was peeping on his sisters, and that kind of started his whole voyeurism thing.
Voyeurism?
Fucking off to his sisters, yeah.
Be disturbing.
It is, yes. You say normal childhood.
Voyeurism.
Yeah. Peeping Tom.
You mean voyeurism?
Okay, yeah, voyeurism.
You did that on one of your episodes too. I can't remember which one. It was fairly recent though. Voyeurism. I think it's funny.
He was an explorer.
There we go.
Most of the wrong things.
Yes.
So he had a younger brother, and he got made fun of because his father wasn't around, and he didn't have very many friends as a result. And his closest friend was his brother. The brothers became tight. They had a deep bond based on their perceived hardships in life, and they began to develop anger against the town itself. And Alan would talk to his mother about it, and she would always, take a love thy neighbor / turn the other cheek approach to it. But the truth of the matter is that these kids were just, kids are just assholes. And, that's just it. That's, what I tell my daughter all the time. Kids are jerks. But they weren't going through anything more troublesome than any other kid was going through. But Alan and his brother, they weren't convinced, and they began skipping school and getting into trouble. Alan did manage to finish high school by the age of 16, and his brother was 15. And at this point, a real tragedy hit. His brother, to be specific. The tragedy came in the form of the truck that ran his brother over, killing him.
Yeah, that was pretty awful.
It was. Yeah. And I heard that it really impacted Alan.
Well, being his only male father, that would have been his only male figure in his life, right?
Yeah.
He had a pretty crappy stepfather, but his brother was the one he looked up to.
Yeah, or even though it was his younger brother. I mean, that right there, that kind of rings like Ivan Milat there. Mm-hmm. Ivan was not the oldest one, but he was the dominant one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his only friend, really, that he had.
Right. But this just added fuel to his victim mentality, which was, it was all self-inflicted. He had made a mountain out of a molehill, and his mother pushed him away, and that was a direct result of it. It's like, you're not a victim here. Just, you're not special. You're no different than anybody else. Just deal with it. Life sucks.
Yeah, it wasn't very different than what she had to deal with either, right? She was living in poverty. She was dealing with men beating on her. She was dealing with her son's death. And right. So I can imagine how it would have been.
Like, I just lost my son, you little twerp.
Yeah.
You don't see me trying to declare war on all of humanity.
Especially the town goers.
It's true. But at the same time, he didn't have the skills to cope with that. He had never really had that real nurturing childhood. And so his one safe spot was now taken away from him. And so you can see how he will begin to spiral after this.
Right. So
not to justify what he does later, but just to give us a little bit of understanding of where he was mentally at that time.
But he definitely has that victim mentality.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
He absolutely does. Mm-hmm. Even after he's caught, he still blames it on the town.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have it in the notes here coming up, but I'm pretty sure that he could have been labeled as the first incel.
That sounds fitting.
Yeah.
But so now he was a lonely victim, and nobody wanted anything to do with him, so he decided it was time to go. So he moved to Winchester, outside of Ottawa, where he got a job as, take a guess.
Wasn't it a mechanic?
No,
Machinist?
Machinist?
Car salesman. Used car salesman.
Oh, really?
Okay, we knew it was something with cars.
Yeah. And it's just fitting. It's just fitting that he was a used car salesman. But
well, it sounded like he had a little bit of a Jekyll and a Hyde personality, because some people that gave reports about him talked about how great he was and how kind, and then others were like, he is off the wall crazy.
Yeah.
And was so unpredictable.
He wasn't great as a car salesman, but he managed. But he wanted to excel. But he was a new face in town in a cutthroat industry, and he never excelled at it, but he did well enough to scrape by. And used cars was like the only field that he was ever employed in. So, being a victim with an
inferiority is your voyager.
we all have our words that we struggle with.
Oh, with me, it doesn't matter. It's just random. I got hung up when I was trying to say self-confidence one time. I got tongue-tied on that.
How ironic.
Yeah.
But you had the confidence to keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't cut any of that crap out. I leave it because it's funny.
You don't know what you're in for then. Because we end up cutting a lot out. And that's why we have our blooper reel at the end of our episode.
Well, sometimes like before Todd left, when we started doing videos, now that there aren't any videos with him in them, but he would just, whenever I would get tongue tied, he'd hold up his hand, 1, 2, 3, and he'd like count attempts where I would, where I would get tongue tied. It's 4. I think the most he ever got up was 5 attempts.
So it's like we might run out of fingers if we do that sometimes.
But being a victim with an inferiority complex was Alan's entire identity. I mean, he hated people, and he didn't really know how to compartmentalize, and this made him extremely unattractive to the ladies, which pissed him off even more. Yeah, he was likely an incel before that term even came to be. So,
well, he was pretty little too, wasn't he, Bill?
At the beginning.
Yeah, he worked on it hit the gym pretty hard, but he was a small guy.
Yeah, but so was Pee Wee Gaskins.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not going to call him the Canadian Pee Wee, but that's Willie Picton, I guess. But still, I mean, Pee Wee Gaskins was a short little twerp, but he would mess you up.
But it kind of leads into his now I'm doing the exact same thing you were. Inferiority complex. Yeah.
Yeah, but what do so many incels do when they feel that they've had enough?
They lash out.
Yeah.
They turn to crime.
Yep. Yeah. They become dirtbags.
Yep. So he started robbing people, and he was in his late 20s at this point, and he wasn't really good at robbing people. Alan Legere was a lot of things, but one thing that he was not was a fighter. He'd get caught stealing, and more often than not, he'd get his ass kicked. But these beatings didn't stop him from stealing, and because he was not going to be denied his revenge. His revenge for a crappy life that was his own doing. I mean, these people are so easy to laugh at because they just think that, nobody, they've got it so bad when really it's, they don't have it any worse than anybody else.
Right. Melissa and I have spoken about this on our podcast before, how when someone doesn't take responsibility for their actions, just how dangerous that person can become.
And how much they can justify because of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that victim mentality, like you're saying.
Yeah. And I mean, I always tell my daughter, it's just like everything that happens to me is a result of some choice that I made at some point. That's my outlook on life. And I'm trying to get her to adopt that mantra as well. But it's kind of hard with the 14-year-old, though.
Yeah, they're not necessarily into taking responsibility.
Not always. No. But then some grown adults aren't either. And then we end up with someone like Alan. Right.
But the thefts did supplement his crappy income from being a less than adequate car salesman. So that did allow him to get some nicer things. But one thing that couldn't get him was sex. So he began assaulting women and attempting rape. He was never actually arrested on any rape charges, though. So here's a thought. Maybe use some of the money that you get from robbing people to, I don't know, pay a hooker.
Might have worked. I thought I had read a report too that Alan had trouble getting it up and staying up all the time.
Doesn't surprise me.
He had to like there had to be some element of violence to it, or else he just couldn't finish.
See,
normal sex wasn't in his realm.
Just pain, just inflicting pain doesn't, I don't find that sexy.
Well, everybody can be into what they want to be into, but it has to be consensual.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're into getting tied from a ceiling and getting beat like a piñata, if you like it, more power to you. Have fun.
But if you're like Alan and you're sneaking into people's bedrooms and watching them sleep and feeling them up while they sleep, that's not consensual. So,
No.
yeah.
No. So, I mean, but that, he didn't want to pay a hooker. He would rather take sex by force, and like we were just talking about. But this mindset really lends more credence to the fact that he was an incel. And everybody owed him something.
Yeah.
That includes women with their bodies.
Yep.
So finally, after multiple ass kickings, Alan finally learned how to fight, sort of, and he resorted to assaulting the people that he was robbing. But while he was more successful in robbery, he still got his ass kicked quite a bit, which of course, the people who did beat him, they mocked him, which fueled his self-inflicted rage even more.
Right. And it kind of leads into his victim type that he does choose to attack.
Right. People he knows he can overpower.
Yeah.
Right. None of his victims were young and fit.
No, they were all at a disadvantage to him for sure.
Yeah.
There were two women in their 40s, but he caught them by surprise. So I'd like to think the two women in their 40s could have gotten over on him, but we'll get to them. He was in his mid 30s and he didn't have a steady job or family. You need a willing woman for that. and no house. Yeah, he lived in a farmhouse in Inkerman. And everyone, including his coworkers at the used car dealership, they all laughed at him. His sales were average at best and usually a little bit below average. And he probably didn't get a lot of coffee because we all know coffee is for closers. I wasn't sure if he'd get that or not.
Yep.
So finally, Alan had enough of being wrongfully tormented because his coworkers were holding him back from being able to sell, and convincing his customers that he was an idiot, and especially the countless weeks without coffee. I mean, Alan quit his job as a used car salesman, and he was 36 at this point and almost 37. Now, some people swear by their coffee, and if you can't close a deal and you don't get any coffee, I mean, I'm not into coffee or whatever, but I know some people, they're Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to their coffee.
Yeah, some people need it. For me, it's a can of Pepsi a day. That keeps me happy.
He had enough of Winchester and he left his farmhouse and he headed to Black River Bridge, which is in the Miramichi River Valley. And this would be where he committed his first murder about a year later. John Glendenning and his wife Mary were an older couple. John was 66. Mary was a few years younger.
It'll be awesome when you go.
Huh?
I said it'll be awesome when you go because there's no video with this one. You can cut out.
Nah, I don't cut it out unless it's like really bad. But I usually just leave that stuff in.
Just funny. Let it roll, Bill. Yeah.
So they owned a storefront and they lived in an apartment above it. And everybody in the small town liked them and they had no enemies. Just a simple life, living the dream. Alan, on the other hand, had nothing, no savings from his coffeeless career as a used car salesman. He was broke, but he had a plan. Alan had been going to Mr. Glendenning's shop for about a week, and he was familiar with his routines at that point. And Mr. Glendenning had no clue that Alan was casing him. Alan had seen John's safe, and he was convinced that it was full of money. And he had gotten it out of John that John had kept his life savings in that safe, and Alan decided that John owed it to him.
Yeah, don't ever tell anybody. If you keep all your savings in your property, don't tell anyone.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. Yeah, that's where I keep every penny that I've ever made in my entire life. Right there in that safe, that's not bolted to the ground or anything.
But I think Alan had befriended him he had come in and was talking to him and trying to build a bit of a false friendship with him.
Yeah, he could be charming, I think, when he wanted to be. He had this whole Jekyll and Hyde thing going on.
Yeah. Obviously, because I don't think Mr. Glendenning just went around telling everybody, hey, all my money's in that safe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming
And he
the
was also
victim
able
here,
to talk to accomplices into it too, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Beavis and Butthead.
Yep.
His plan was to break into the shop and steal the safe and pry it open later somewhere else. This would be Alan's biggest crime to date, so he decided they needed backup. He decided on two younger men, Todd Matchett and Scott Curtis, who were 18 and 19 years old, and they were already criminals with rap sheets dating back 6 years. Just, 18, 19 years old, but they had 60 years worth of rap sheets. There we go.
Even 6 years for each of them is impressive.
Yeah, I had read that one started as young as 8. Like his first offense was when he was 8 years old, which is wild.
Yeah. But I'm just going to refer to him as Beavis and Butthead because that's kind of what they thought. And I've said this before, like they need to make, you know how they're like doing these weird shows with, movies with like Winnie the Pooh, the serial killer and all that stuff, which I watched. It wasn't bad for a slasher movie. It wasn't bad. It really wasn't.
I missed that one.
It was bad, but in a good way. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was good. But, they ought to do something. They ought to come up with like a movie where Beavis and Butthead grow up and Beavis turns into a serial killer.
Oh, I watched that. I remember Beavis and Butthead.
Well, think about head injury, check. Wet the bed, check.
That's true. Yes.
Cruel to animals, check. Obsessed with fire, check. He checks all the boxes. Beavis does. Not so much Butthead, but Beavis does.
How come no one has made this movie yet?
I don't know. Let's make it.
Okay.
It was just petty thefts and everything. They'd gotten away with it because mostly because it all happened before they turned 18. And Allan had cred in their eyes and they looked up to him. The plan was simple. Break in at night, cut the power, grab the safe, and get out. Nobody was supposed to die in the original plan.
And cut the phone lines, right? Only we left one behind.
Yeah, there was a separate line upstairs, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we get to the phone lines in one of his later victims too. But Alan Legere was a lot of things, but one thing he wasn't was smart. And the plan was going smooth. Although he's stupid, but later on he's pretty intelligent to be able to stay hidden, for as long as he did.
Intelligent or resourceful?
Resourceful. We'll go with, because I don't give him any credit.
Yeah.
So the plan was going smoothly and they had gotten in, they went to the fuse box and they cut the power. And Allan didn't realize that Mr. Jennings' apartment and the shop would be on the same fuse box. So when the lights in the apartment went out, it got dark in the apartment, or when the lights in the shop went out, it got dark in the apartment as well. But that wasn't the only problem. Mr. Glendenning had moved the safe up into his apartment a couple of days earlier.
Makes you wonder if he had an inkling of what Allan was planning.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
But it's so unfortunate because that ultimately is what caused this horrific scene that you're about to tell us about to happen.
Yeah, true. So,
but of course he was a big enough dirtbag that didn't stop him when he came in and saw that the safe was not there.
No. So, John owed it to him, remember? That he had a right to John's money, remember?
Right. He's probably thinking, how dare you move the safe?
Yeah. How dare you move your safe?
Yeah.
But, So there was a quick change of plans. They went upstairs and broke in. They beat Mr. Glendenning badly, and they left him in a bloody heap on the floor. Then they set their sights on his wife, and she was beaten ferociously. And then these three chuckleheads took turns raping her. And then they took off without the safe. They didn't even bring the safe with them. I mean, that kills me right there. That's just like they didn't even get the safe that they had come there for. That was the whole point of them even going, and they didn't even get it.
Just makes it so pointless.
Yeah.
I had read in some articles that they took the safe with them, but then I did read in other articles that they didn't.
Well, according to the book with the really long title, they
left it.
They left without it. Yeah. They couldn't find it.
I did read that too.
The book said that they left it because they had already been in enough commotion and they didn't want to draw attention to themselves. But that's still, in my opinion, that's still giving them too much credit. So I'd just like to say they forgot it.
Right. Because Beavis and Butthead, they weren't expecting the violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, but.
And so they just wanted to get out of there.
But that didn't stop him from raping his wife.
No.
They all three did that.
Yeah. Horrific.
Yeah. Gross. But, Miss Glendenning came to, and she called the police, and she survived the ordeal, but her husband had not. And she was able to give very good descriptions to the police, and it only took them a couple of weeks to track Allan and his stooges down and arrest them. It is
nice lights. I love it. Christy can't see it, but he's blue and red lights flashing as the police show up.
He sent me a video of his new toy. I did see that.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm just figuring out how I'm going to use it when we, actually do use the video for future episodes.
You've got quite the setup going on. I'm loving it.
Well, it doubles as a music recording studio. So I do that too. But to walk in here, it looks like a freaking radio station. But in his mugshot, Allan had a serious shiner under his right eye. And I wonder if a cop roughed him up during the arrest.
I hope so.
Yeah. I hope so. Because
I'm sure the cops weren't happy with him messing with the elderly.
Have you seen the mugshot? I mean,
yeah, I have.
That's one hell of a black eye he's got there.
Mm-hmm. And we don't feel sorry for him at all.
Nope.
No tears over here.
I like that. But this was huge news locally, and the public wanted the people, wanted Allan and his Beavis and Butthead gone. So, Todd Marchette and Scott Curtis and Alan Legere were put on trial in January of '87, and Allan got life in prison with possibility of parole in 18 years. And Curtis and Matchett turned on Allan, claiming that he was the ringleader, which in fact he was. And in fact, when Matchett was released after serving his sentence, he said that he wanted to see Alan Legere dead. So I couldn't find anything, talking about any future crimes that Matchett might have committed. So maybe
I don't think so.
So maybe he got straight and, lived happily ever after as a good law-abiding citizen.
Or he moved somewhere else, so we just haven't heard.
He moved to Alberta.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and he wrote a book about it after.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
I think so. I don't have notes in front of me, Bill, and so I'm just remembering things that I've read randomly.
Every now and then I'll get one where I just completely drop the ball, and this appears to be one of them. It's like, cause you keep coming up with bits that I didn't even know about. I was like, what did I do? I mean, cause I used the book and I used some other sources as well. I apparently didn't hit the mother load.
Oh, we do like to dig deep.
I mean, I do 5.5 hours on BTK, and then I dropped the ball on this chucklehead.
Hey, we're collaborating.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring something to the table.
Oh, I'm glad you
we
did.
Had to at least read about it.
I'm glad you did. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad you did it. But
yeah, we know how much work you put into creating your notes.
It's not an easy task.
No, it's not. This sentence fueled his rage even more, and he appealed it. It was denied. And Alan Legere, he didn't hold grudges. He nurtured them and breathed life into them.
True.
Yeah. He filed another appeal with the Supreme Court, which was heard but denied. He got a reputation in prison as being a master manipulator. Now, if he had just used those manipulation skills, he could have been probably the used car salesman that got the most coffee.
Yeah.
So, after the appeal, Legere began making plans for an escape. Step one was to injure himself, causing an infection. And
did you read how he did this, Bill? This
mm-hmm.
was, this was pretty wild.
Well, so maybe the book was kind of vague. It says that the book says that he repeatedly hit himself in the ear, causing a wound. And I'm not sure if that would work unless he hit himself with something sharp. Because if you're just sitting there, beating on yourself, that's not going to cause a cut. It's going to cause a bruise.
Oh, I had read in one report that he was dripping his own urine into his ear to cause an infection.
Oh, I did see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I heard that he was poking things in there too to scratch it and then put the urine inside so that it would get infected.
So it wasn't just something that somebody, like antibiotics would treat. He had to be taken out of the facility. That was his whole plan.
Right. That was his plan. I don't think I'm going to use this author anymore. This is the first time I had ever gotten a book from this particular author. But
sometimes it's interesting how different accounts can be, though, when you're doing your research.
Oh, I know.
Well,
I have one author that I use a lot, but I'm eventually going to wind up covering his entire catalog, and but he didn't write one on Alan Legere. I wish he had, because I would have gotten it. But the infection, he had grown his hair out really long and whatnot, and the long hair covered up the infection. And also the fact that no air was getting to it, that probably sped up the infection as well.
Oh, it does sound like it was quite nasty.
Yeah.
He let it brew there for a while.
So on May 3rd, 1989, Allan was sent to Dr. George's L. Dumont University Hospital Center in Moncton. That hospital's name is as long as some of the true crime books.
In Moncton?
Is that
what you said?
In Moncton.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that right? Moncton?
Moncton, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. He snagged a cuticle trimmer and he hid it, and then he told the guards that he needed to use the restroom, and the guards let him go in alone, but they didn't take the handcuffs off. Once he was alone, he tried to pick the lock of the handcuffs using the cuticle trimmer. It broke, but he had a backup plan.
Literally a backup plan.
Yeah. He had rigged a device like a key, like a shank of some sort, like a little key, and he was able to pick open the cuffs with that.
I read that he had that in a cigar, the part that he had picked the handcuffs with.
Yeah, he did.
Which was wild that you could have cigars in the Canadian prison system at that time.
Well, you could still smoke. You could still smoke in airplanes back then.
That's true.
Yeah. But one of the things in the appeals, like when they did the investigation kind of afterwards of how did this guy escape, it wasn't picked up by the police that he didn't smoke.
Yeah.
Like the guards let him through with these 2 cigars and he wasn't a smoker. So what was he doing with them?
Sometimes, Sigmund Freud said sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. And I'm not going to say what George Carlin's reply to that is. I quote George Carlin from time to time on this podcast. That guy was so ahead of his time. He would be great if he were alive right now with all the craziness that's going on in the world. He predicted every bit of it.
It'd be interesting.
But he had also taken a TV antenna and he had hidden it on him, and he opened the door to the bathroom and he pointed at the police officer saying that it was a weapon. And
on him or in him?
Huh? I don't know.
I said
Probably
on him or in him?
Probably up a pants leg or something.
No, no.
It was shoved where the sun don't shine.
Yeah. He got strip searched.
And they didn't see it, but it was actually up his rectum.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. But anyway.
That's probably why the guards weren't getting anywhere close to that antenna when he was coming out at them with it.
Okay, well, that kind of negates Dick Darwin's commentary on it, because I'll just let him kind of explain what happened next.
Hello, everybody. Dick Darwin here, Dallas detective. I have my own thoughts on Alan Legere and how he was able to escape the police officers using a TV antenna as a weapon. You see, back in the early 90s, TVs still were equipped with antennas, and they collapsed down to the length of the TV so that they don't get damaged if the TV was to be moved, see? But if Alan extended it all the way, he could have convinced them that it was a sword, you see? And in the interest of public safety and the fact that the hospitals are gun-free zones, these officers did the right thing by allowing Alan to escape. Even if they did know that it was a TV antenna and not a sword, you could poke an eye out with a TV antenna, you see? So it was best to just let him go and let the officers outside get him. Come on, Dick. There were at least 2 cops there, and they both had guns. He points the antenna, they point the gun. Have you ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? A gun could accidentally go off and hit a patient or a hospital staff member, you see? And yes, I have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a great movie.
Then why not follow him at a distance and grab him as soon as he stepped outside?
Have you ever been hit with a TV antenna? It stings really bad.
Those 2 cops were either scared, lazy, or both.
Who is the law enforcement professional here? You or me?
You are, but
I solve crimes and bust bad guys. You just bitch about it on your crappy podcast. These cops did the right thing by keeping the people in the hospital safe. Dick Darwin, Dallas detective, signing off. Goodbye.
Thanks, Dick. I think I pissed him off.
Amazing. It's true, though. Have you ever been hit with an antenna? It hurts.
I think I pissed him off that time.
Honored to have his appearance when we're guesting on your show.
Yeah, but I don't know. He stormed off. I mean, we had Jessica from Texas True Crime on one time, and he made an appearance. He even kind of flirted with Jessica a little bit. She thought he was a real smoothie. But not today. I pissed him off, apparently.
He was opinionated.
It is kind of unreal that he got out with a TV antenna, right?
It is.
But he was absolutely Houdini to get out of his shackles.
Yeah, because I had read he had his wrists were bound, his feet, and he had a belt with the chains.
Right, and that one he didn't get off, right? It was still on later.
Yeah.
But he got out of his feet shackles and his wrist shackles.
He could have joined the circus as a musician, or a magician, not as a musician.
Yeah, it was wild. And I
Yeah.
don't know how you fit an antenna up there. I know
No.
they're collapsible,
Oh.
but that car ride on the way there, every little bump, I don't know
I
how.
didn't even think about that. Oh, that would be so bad.
That is determination.
His hands would have been cuffed behind his butt. So I bet you he put his hands under his butt. Because how else would you do that? That would, oh my,
I don't know.
Could you slow down a little bit there, officer, please?
it's not perfect rectum.
I don't know. Oh,
Too bad it didn't.
yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad it didn't wreck them.
Where's your ba-dum? There we go.
So, oh man, police began a search and Allan was able to sneak away. He carjacked the car and then took off heading toward Miramichi. And he only stopped a couple of times to ditch the car and steal another. And he had officially declared war on Canada. And
Mhm.
he had long hair and a long beard, and that was what was reported from each person they had stolen a car from. It was Father Yod from the Source family cult carjacked him. There's pictures of him.
It was interesting to me, though, that he let those people go. Because right from the hospital, he took a woman hostage to get her car and then left her unharmed, which is great that he did. But it's just interesting that he picks and chooses.
Yeah.
But do you think that he was assessing which one he could actually beat up or actually do harm to?
Maybe.
No, because when we get into his crimes, he's a home invader. He doesn't do anything in public.
True.
Yep. He likes the cover of darkness.
Yeah, good point.
So, police organized a manhunt because he was an escaped killer, armed and dangerous, and rewards were offered for tips that led to his capture. And the towns in the vicinity put up roadblocks and checkpoints. The word of his escape spread like wildfire, and Legere had learned a lot in prison university. He had escaped from a maximum security prison. Most inmates mellow out in prison, not Legere. I mean, he had been deemed a classic psychopath by a psychologist while in prison because of the fact that he blamed everybody else for his actions. And he especially blamed the Canadian justice system. He was out for revenge, and the only question law enforcement had was where would he strike and who would be his first victim. He had bounced around for several months evading law enforcement, and they figured that he ultimately would wind up in Miramichi because it was a small town where crime didn't happen. And they weren't equipped to deal with an escape. So an escaped serial killer.
Ready?
There we go.
I'll still hold the fingers for you.
So Miramichi knew it. Allan knew it too. And he went on a robbery spree for several months, and he was, in addition to the violence, but he was always one step ahead of the police. And Miramichi was where he would surface the most, and the people there were extremely on edge.
It didn't sound like he tried to hide that he was on the run at all.
No.
He kept showing up and people knew where he was, which is so odd to me. I thought, because why wouldn't you just run? Like, start in a new part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, go to, I don't know. He could have.
Saskatchewan. No one looks there.
He could have gone.
It's all healed.
He could have joined the cult with y'all's queen.
That's true.
Yeah,
he could have been out there.
Yeah,
he could have been erecting her fences.
People were traveling in pairs or in groups. Shops were closing earlier than usual, and car thefts were on a noticeable rise. But he hadn't killed anybody yet, but that was about to change. Like, literally 26 days after his escape, he encountered 75-year-old Annie Flam, who owned a shop in Chatham. And she was also well-known, well-liked by everybody. And She lived with her 68-year-old sister-in-law, Nina Flam, in an apartment above her shop. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
What if she had a safe?
First murder.
Yeah. But May
He's got a very particular MO.
Yeah. On May 29th, 1989, Legere broke into Annie's shop late one night. You know, I mean, is it random or does he have a type? You know, I doubt he cased them, considering his picture was up everywhere, but the book says that the police believe that he staked these women out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how, he sticks out like a sore thumb. He still looked like a hippie, with super long hair and a long beard. So, I mean, I don't, if he would be noticed like immediately if he was staking, if he was casing people. So I think it was random.
I don't know. It's New Brunswick in the 80s.
Yeah, they probably all looked like him.
There's a lot of lumberjacks there.
Yeah.
But they all wear.
But it's hard to say.
Yeah.
They all wear women's clothing, just like their dear pawpaw.
No.
But his picture was everywhere. So
Right.
I can't imagine that he would be standing out in the open, casing somebody out.
These victims were old, and he was in his early 40s, and he overpowered them easily, and he pinned Annie down, and he beat her with a blunt object, breaking her jaw with it. He then raped her, and then he killed her, and then he attacked Nina ferociously as well, but she faked her death, although she wound up having critical injuries too, because when Legere left the scene, he lit the building on fire, and that's what was called in. The medics, they found Annie's body, and Nina was almost dead because she had third-degree burns over most of her body.
I had read too somewhere, Bill, that he had a very particular way of starting the fires, and that he would turn a book, a hardcover book, over and start the pages on fire. But because the hardcover kind of covered it up, it would give him enough time to get away.
Resourceful.
And so his totally resourceful, but it was also really telling to all of the investigators. The fire investigators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I read as well that he would light their clothes on fire, hanging in their closets.
Yeah.
That's still enough time to give you like a fuse.
Yeah.
Something
for sure.
Like a long fuse. Same effect. This guy was resourceful. But
unfortunately.
Yeah. But Nina said that they were asleep when they broke in, and she actually slept through Annie's murder, which, it wasn't until Allan knocked over a lamp that she woke up, and that was when Allan attacked her. She said he was screaming that he was going to get back at everybody for what they had done to mess up his life.
Grow up.
Self-entitled dirtbag.
And the thing is, I mean, how could Nina sleep through Annie's murder like that? 4 women in Tallahassee slept through brutal murders as well when Ted Bundy came.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I guess, heavy sleepers, I guess. But,
well, and even if you were to hear a sound, you're not expecting your roommate or your sister to be being murdered.
Right. She didn't tell me she had a date tonight.
That's right.
But, that was bad.
Yeah.
Once Allan left, Nina tried to get up and get out of the burning building, but Allan shoved her back in and beat her again. And she wound up with second and third degree burns on most of her body, in addition to the physical trauma. But she survived and named Allan as the killer. Yep, that was him. That hippie-looking dude. So this sent Miramichi into a panic, and checkpoints and roadblocks were set up everywhere. People began installing lights in their front yards and to ward Legere off, and one resident referred to them as Legere lights.
Yeah.
That's
And they
crazy.
canceled Halloween.
Yeah. He didn't show up again until October, but police were still constantly searching, and there was a $50,000 reward on his head, but no information came. He had the town gripped in fear because from time to time there would be evidence in barns or abandoned buildings that somebody had been staying there recently. He hadn't killed again, but this would change in October of 1989, and it turned out that he did have a type after these two first kills. Easy and defenseless, proving just how much of a coward he was.
For sure.
But in another Canadian head-scratcher scenario, on October 13th, the Canadian Supreme Court announced that they would not give a ruling on Allan's appeal because he had escaped. And my reaction to reading that was, yeah, and?
Well, I think they actually used it as a ploy to try to get him to come back.
Oh, okay. Kind of like, just flush him out, get him pissed off and flush him out in the open. Okay. All right.
Yeah, come and do your hearing. We haven't said no yet.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre because who's going to turn themselves in for their parole hearing?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, in our current case, Larry Jean Bell, they did some stuff like that to where they would intentionally get him to to kind of flush him out. It's kind of interesting how they do that. It's like on the surface, it's like what are they doing? But then when you think it's like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing.
I think they were feeling pretty desperate at this time too, to try anything they could to catch him.
Oh yeah, but so Alan found out about this, and that grew his rage even more. I mean, what did he expect? Seriously, I mean, but
true.
But the way you explained it though, that makes sense, because at first that's why I called it a head scratcher scenario. I'm like, what? But yeah, it makes sense now. But the press on that day advised citizens to be vigilant, lock up their doors, houses, keep the lights on, etc. And that same night, Legere struck again, and sisters Linda and Donna Downey, ages 45 and 41. He broke into their shared home and he tied Linda to a chair and then beat and raped Donna until she was dead. And he was using an ice pick. I read that wrong. He had broken in using an ice pick and then he cut the phone line. And I know of somebody who would be very irate about Legere cutting the phone line, but autopsies showed that the sisters had been bound, tortured, and killed. See what I did there?
ETK?
He toyed with them for hours before finally killing them, and he made Linda sit there and watch him torture and kill Donna before doing the same to Linda. And when Legere left the house, he set it on fire, and when the bodies were found, both had been mutilated.
Ugh.
Nice guy, this puke.
Yeah, he really was a monster.
And it sounds like he's escalating.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Like with each time, it's just getting worse and worse.
Oh, where do we get to the priest?
Yeah. Well, and he's getting more confident because to spend the whole night torturing them and just taking his time speaks to how confident he was in thinking that he wasn't going to get caught and he could take his sweet time.
But he's thinking that because he's been on the run for so long.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the women weren't quiet.
Oh.
So he didn't care unless their house was just like out of the way or something like that. But it sounded to me like it was another storefront with an apartment on top of it. That's what it sounded like to me. But
yeah, I'm not sure.
So, but the news of this murder set the people of Miramichi into an even greater sense of panic. And Legere, he's not only stopping, he's not only not stopping, he's becoming more brutal.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first case where DNA had actually been tested, and they took fingerprints as well as semen and hair samples, and it was soon proven that it was, in fact, Alan Legere who had committed these murders. But the people, they're scared. They began sleeping with guns in the bed with him. And this was when he was given the name the Monster of Miramichi. Children weren't allowed outside during that time. And like you said, Halloween was canceled that year.
I read that even if you were out on Halloween wearing a mask, you would be interrogated by the police. There was even a no mask rule that Halloween.
Oh, I thought they couldn't go out at all.
Well, they weren't supposed to. They'd canceled Halloween, but if you were caught outside with a mask on, you would be treated as a suspect.
Wow. That just speaks to how much terror he had inflicted in the whole area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because even though he never wore a mask, Halloween would be the perfect time to do it. He had to wear one. Yeah, he could dress up as Michael Myers and,
no one would know.
Yeah. But there are constantly police helicopters in the air. They're searching for everything. The whole town is just gripped and, panicking at this point. I couldn't imagine. I mean,
no, it would be terrifying.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when Danny Rolling was on the run, they had somebody else. They had the wrong guy in custody, and that wrong guy lived in Melbourne Beach, Florida. But that's where he was from. And so that kind of just could the guy that did all these murders live in our town? Because that's where I grew up, and because that made big news because of where he was from. But obviously, his name was cleared when Danny Rolling was caught. but
it's an unnerving thought.
Mm-hmm. I like to refer to Florida as the place where serial killers go to die. All those people up in the Northwest, they couldn't handle Ted Bundy. He came to Florida. We put him down. Same thing with Danny Rolling. He came to Florida. We put him down. So, a lot of them. Joseph Paul Franklin. He got busted in Florida too.
They wanted to retire there, maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do an episode on, where Florida, where serial killers go to die. I think I'm sure there's enough of them to make a decent linked episode off of that.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
Yeah,
they're seeking the warmer weather.
Yeah.
Oh, it's supposed to get cold tomorrow.
Oh, well, we're supposed to get snow this week, so your cold and our cold is two different things.
Well, I think I've told you, Christy, we're going to get one more cold snap, and I think it's coming tomorrow. So,
but your cold snap is our nice snap that we get.
Yeah, our cold snap is your July. But so, the newspaper stupidly ran a story saying that the judge who sentenced Legere, as well as a couple of the jurors on the case, had lived in a certain neighborhood. That's almost as bad as Dianne Feinstein saying that we're looking for somebody with these types of shoes. Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, I guess Legere didn't read the newspaper that day. Because that was just stupid. You'll dox somebody like that,
No.
If I'm that judge, I'm like, pack up the kids in a bag, honey. We're going to Disney World.
Absolutely. Or to Florida.
Yeah, and if he follows us, if he follows us to Florida, then they'll get him, because Florida is where serial killers go to die. So he either didn't see the newspaper that day or he didn't care. But he then set his sights on a Roman Catholic priest named Father James Smith. Smith was also well liked among the citizens of Miramichi. He was kind and he would help anybody who needed it. November 16th of 1989, Father Smith didn't show up for Mass, and this was very much not like him. So the police were called, and he was found dead and mutilated in his home, and he had been tortured brutally and beaten. His ribs were broken on both sides of his body, and there were shoe prints on his torso as if somebody had stood on his chest and jumped up and down.
I heard every single rib was broken.
Yeah.
Just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So violent.
And attacked on purpose because he was a prominent citizen in the community, right? This one would have a big impact on everybody in the community. It wasn't just one person's relatives. It was the whole community's pastor, priest.
Yeah, this is like,
Priest,
I mentioned Joseph Paul Franklin. This is like him, like wanting to take out like Jesse Jackson or, Larry Flint or whatever, these high profile people to make a name for himself, to start the race war. Joseph Paul Franklin, that was a crazy story. I don't know if you guys have covered him or not, but if you might want to, that's an insane story. But
you know that one, Christy?
Not well, no.
Oh, it's not familiar to me.
Well, he's
now
the guy
I have to go research.
He's the guy that paralyzed Larry Flint.
Mm.
Shot him. He shot Larry Flint and paralyzed him. That's Joseph Paul Franklin.
Yeah, we'll have to cover that one day.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting ones for sure. So he went to Salt Lake City in the 80s looking for black pimps.
Did he find any?
He managed to find the only two people that lived in Salt Lake City at the time. That case is where my little Nazi Joe character originated from. I haven't heard from him in a while either. But once again, DNA was collected and confirmed that it was Alan Legere. I'm wondering how long it's taken to run these tests and determine that.
Well, it was pretty early on in its development.
And I don't even think they had the lab up running in Toronto by then. That wasn't until, maybe it was by the last one, but definitely not by the first one. Yeah. It wasn't like they were running them in the province. They were having to be sent out.
Right. A cop damn it.
Okay. Well, you struggle to get your thoughts together. Did you know that DNA tests are available on the counter, or you can order them from Walmart?
From Walmart?
Yes, you can. Paternity tests. I learned this last night.
Oh.
Yep.
I did not know that.
DNA's come a long way since they were doing Alan's DNA.
True. But a cop described this as a scene from hell. Blood was everywhere. Blood trails showed that Father James had been dragged all the way through the house. His eyes had been gouged out, and Alan had even tried to rip his tongue out.
Oh.
Teeth were broken. Yeah. Teeth were broken, and to top it all off, Alan had stolen Father James's car, but it was soon found abandoned at a train station. And in it were items that had Alan's DNA on them, but somebody had reported seeing somebody matching Legere's description buying a train ticket to Montreal. And so Miramichi police contacted Quebec and had them stop the train and search it. Alan wasn't on board, unfortunately. And I have a promo that I have to run that I forgot about, so I'm just going to go ahead and play it now.
Lads, do you enjoy getting traumatized on a weekly basis? Well, neither does my co-host Neil.
People call me a victim more than a co-host.
Anyway, welcome to the Mortal Musings podcast. I'm your host, Megan. Each week, we dive into some truly dark and disturbing cases. Do you ever find yourself listening to these horrific tales and saying to yourself,
Huh? No. Huh? What the actual Why? Why did you do that? Solved it, mate. There's no need for that. They're just acting the
Our episodes include cases of serial killers, The story of a socialite that was held captive for 25 years. Prison riots, wrongful executions, and scandals in the death industry. At the end of each episode, we throw in a tale of oddity. Anything from medical mishaps to the real-life Weekend at Bernie's or Mike the Headless Chicken. New episodes every Wednesday. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
And remember, here at the Mortal Musings podcast, we like to take the cases seriously, but not ourselves.
I hadn't listened to that.
That's a fun one.
I hadn't listened to that yet. That podcast sounds like it's right up my alley. But frustration levels were through the roof for Miramichi law enforcement. But the same day that the train was searched, a woman came forward saying that she knew where Allan was. And she had been traveling, and she had seen a stranded car, and she had stopped to help. Allan had then ordered her to take him as a hostage back to Miramichi. So they had to stop for gas, and Allan grabbed the keys out of the ignition and got out to pump the gas himself. But luckily, this woman had a second set of keys on her. I'm pretty sure it was on her, not the same place where he had the TV antenna.
Yeah.
No, probably in her purse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
only Alan's pulling stuff like that.
But
well, if it was in the wintertime, sometimes you have to start your car to let it warm up. So then you do have a second set of keys on you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
This was, you say when this was? Well, it was after October, so yeah, it probably was winter.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why.
Okay. Once Allan was completely out of the car, getting ready to pump the gas, she started it up and peeled out of the gas station, leaving Allan just, holding his hose in his hand. Once she got a good distance away, she stopped and called the police. And now they had a precise location to search. So they set up roadblocks in the vicinity. They found that Legere had jacked a pickup truck. And they located the truck, and Alan Legere, the monster of Miramichi, was finally in custody.
You forgot your lights that time.
Oh, damn it.
There you go.
August 17th of 1990, Allan was sentenced to 9 years for escaping and for kidnapping. He was then tried for 4 counts of first-degree murder. August 28th, 1991, the trial began and lasted 2 months. Now, one thing that the police had kept secret was that the DNA had proved that Allan had committed these murders. That information didn't come out until the trial itself, and I can only imagine the look of shell shock that must have been on Legere and his lawyers' faces. It's like, what? All right.
It would have been great to see.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people didn't even know at the time that you could collect these samples, that you could get your DNA from sperm and blood and all these different things.
And hair.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it was an open and shut case once they came through with that evidence. And, Legere had been meticulous about covering his tracks, but you can't escape DNA.
Thankfully.
Yeah. November 3rd, 1991, Legere was convicted of all 4 counts of murder, and he got life in prison with no parole. He immediately appealed, which was denied. Shortly later, there were reports that he was trying to escape, and he was flown to a special handling unit at Quebec prison, which is a supermax facility. As of 2024, he's 76 years old, and he ain't going anywhere.
He's in Edmonton now, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe he's been transferred to Edmonton, Alberta now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's by 2015. In 2015, he was moved to the Edmonton Institution in Alberta, but he keeps filing for appeals, and they keep being denied. And he even tried to get day parole, which was obviously also denied. Yeah, like they're going to let him out of prison to go, the Pinky Promise release program. You'll come back, right? I got your pinky promise, right?
Yeah, no. Considering what he did to escape prison, I don't think he'd be coming back.
No.
I mean, yeah, but you can't violate the pinky promise release program. I mean, that's like a bond. I mean, everybody knows that.
You'll be cursed.
Yeah. But now he's just a boogeyman type story that the locals tell newcomers, and people like us tell everybody else.
Yeah, boogeyman only real.
Yeah.
As for Alan Legere, I think the death sentence would have been too good for him. I mean, he's suffering a lot more, simmering in his rage and insisting that it's society's fault that he did everything that he did. So, good riddance, chucklehead.
Yep. I think he's even cried about how everyone should be forgiving him.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Everyone deserves a second chance. Why won't you forgive me? Yeah, it's pretty pathetic.
That's ridiculous. I mean, if somebody had murdered his brother, would he forgive that person?
No, he would have fueled it to do more bad things.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would have been another excuse for him.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, if he wouldn't forgive anybody. No, his brother wasn't murdered. It was I'm sure it was an accident, but
it's a hit and run, right? Yeah.
Was it hit and run?
Or it just hit.
It just said he was
it was
hit,
a vehicle accident. Yeah.
So, yeah, but if somebody had murdered his brother, he definitely wouldn't have forgiven that person.
No, and his crimes were horrific. This was not a petty theft or something that you can easily forgive.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I brutally raped, tortured people and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, if him and BTK need to have a conference call.
Yeah. And especially when there's no remorse, because if there's no remorse, he doesn't really view what he did was wrong. So he would be so dangerous let back out on the streets.
Oh yeah, even now. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I mean, he could sneak into like an old folks home in the middle of the night, like he belonged there, and just go on a spree and be out of there before anybody knew that he was there. Well, maybe not with all the cameras, but still.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. Do you have anything else?
No, that was good job covering it. It was interesting to learn a few things. I know that he was born on Friday the 13th, and it rings true that he is the monster of Miramichi.
So yeah, I guess.
Well, thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for coming on. Enjoyed it. I'll have to do that again sometime. That
was a lot of fun.
Maybe I'll be a guest on your show, and I'll send you the episode once I've edited it, if you want to, and you can put it on your feed if you want.
Sure. If we end up in Nashville, it might be a good thing to give us a week break to be able to not be producing while we're in Nashville.
I still don't know if I'm going or not, but I have a ticket.
We still don't know 100% either.
We have tickets, but we're in the exact same boat. I don't know if we're going to pull it off.
I might actually. I'm thinking about getting a tent and going, because there's a couple campsites near there, and setting up a tent if I can find the air conditioner for a tent.
Oh yeah, good idea.
They make them, and it wouldn't be a bad idea. It wouldn't. It'd
be a lot.
Be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, a hell of a lot less than $250 a night.
Yeah,
that's true.
And they really dropped the ball in planning that, because it's the week before the CMAs. So it's just like whoever planned that didn't do a really good job.
That's probably why everything's so expensive right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'll have to go to, if I can't go to this one, I'll go to next year, but my luck next year will be in Seattle.
Seattle's not bad. Yeah. I'd go to Seattle.
We could drive if it was Seattle.
Yeah. Seattle's about the furthest point in the continental United States away from me.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Well, thanks again for coming on and covering part 1 of the Canadian Binge.
We feel honored to be beginning of that with you.
And we're happy you're visiting Canada. We've got some really good dirtbags up here.
We do.
That need to be covered.
Yeah, I'm not ready to do the Anthill Kids yet. Not there yet.
Anthill Kids?
Yeah.
I covered that one. It's disturbing.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. So, and I'm not going to cover Carla Homolka yet. Not because I'm not ready to, just not yet.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that one too.
Got to do lesser known ones and then headline it with Willie Picton. So,
I think Willie Picton's probably our most notorious one. The most victims.
Yeah. Well, and the Anthill Kids. As far as cults go, that's like the worst cult story that there is.
Yeah, it was a bad one.
So, all right. Well, thanks again, and check us out on our socials. Check them out on their socials. That's Buried Motives. If you haven't listened to them, I suggest it because they're really good. And like, share, subscribe, all that stuff, all that good stuff. Get the word out. I want to be invited to next year's Crime Con. Like, I want them to invite me. I don't want to buy a ticket. I want them to invite me. So I need more listeners.
That's great.
Click the like buttons.
Yeah. Mash it down
really
for both.
Everyone out.
Well, actually, if you're listening to this, you probably already like my podcast. So mash theirs.
Yeah. We'll like ours.
Yeah.
So we can all go to CrimeCon next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll set our booth up right next to yours, and I have a feeling that
have some good times.
If we do get a booth, I have a feeling Dick Darwin will be making an in-person appearance. So, all right. Until next week. Later.
See ya.
Bye.